Welcome to another awesome edition of Ask the Expert on Contingent Workforce Strategies LinkedIn group. And this is a really cool topic with a really cool person. I've, talked with Kathy over the last number of years and gotten to know her better and actually gotten to know the company a lot better. And I'm so excited to talk on the topic of the state of light industrial staffing in 2024. I'm here with Kathy Gans from Joined Up, a Beeline company. So Kathy, welcome to Ask the Expert, and I'm so excited to talk on light industrial staffing.
Thank you. I'm happy to talk about it. Light industrial is something you either love to do or you got out of it really quickly. And
Try to avoid,
you started
right?
in it, you knew right away it was going to be for you, it wasn't going to be for you.
Well, tell us a little bit about your background in the space and the technology space and the light industrial space.
Sure, you bet. Well, many years, longer than I like to admit, I fell into staffing like most people do. I don't think anybody really goes to school to study staffing, but I fell into it, found out that I loved it, so I stayed in it for a long time. I started in light industrial, and then I moved to professional for a long time where I led recruiting sales teams, very large P&Ls. I love that. I went from loving to sell light industrial to loving coaching and development of my team. And then right before COVID hit, I went back to light industrial. I don't know if I said that, but right before COVID hit, things started to change and some technology was entering the picture and really started to disrupt the business, especially light industrial. And so I thought, I think I might want to jump on that side of the business. And so that's what I've done today. I am working for Beeline, and Beeline bought this product, Joined Up. So now instead of filling orders and coaching and developing sales teams, I am providing solutions to those teams, because if you've been in light industrial, you know, in that labor category, it can be completely chaotic, completely stressful. It's the kind of situation where if somebody needs 30 people, they need them immediately. Yeah. And sometimes because things happen in life, somebody intends to show up, but they don't show up. So the recruiters have to anticipate that and fill more slots than the client needs. There's background checks, drug tests, there's cancellations, no-shows. It is not a simple send somebody and move on to the next.
Yeah, no, it's amazing
on your list.
And how bringing technology into it is helping to automate and streamline those processes and all those checks that have to be done to make sure they're consistently done in a very fast, quick, efficient manner, right? And it has to be efficient because, quite honestly, in light industrial staffing, pay rates are lower and so are sometimes the margins. So you got to get more and more efficient in that space, right? So it's interesting, though, when we talk about light industrial and the whole idea of some people want to avoid it, it's amazing how resilient the light industrial market has been. Like, getting people to physically show up to work is difficult in this new world of work. And quite honestly, the demographics of our population, specifically in North America, where, we used to have the baby boom that would take these types of roles, and they're exiting the workforce. And then the younger generations got very fancy clean nails, and they are highly educated and don't want to be in the light industrial space. And so getting people to show up for hospitality, customer service, manufacturing, things that you physically have to be present and not work from your home office, etc., is really difficult. And so trying to recruit people, and because of that, companies are really relying on staffing agencies and experts in the field to help them find the resources they need in that space. So it's been very resilient. But let's talk about some of the trends, you're also seeing, not just the resilience of the market, but what's happening in that space.
Yeah, so towards the end of 2023, well, throughout 22 and 23, we really saw that this was a candidate-driven market. There was a complete shortage of available people to fill the type of roles you just suggested. Warehouse work, forklift drivers, hospitality. So for staffing agencies, their focus was really on let's spend money to engage and recruit people. And then towards the end of the year and now entering 2024, we've seen that loosen up a little bit. We've seen staffing agencies start to add more resources towards selling to get more job orders. And yet, you would think that would mean there'd be more people available because the market gets to a client-driven market, sort of like real estate. But even though we are starting to see less demand there for orders, there's still a high demand to fill the ones we have, and there is still a gap. So that's one of the trends is the labor shortage is going to continue, the gap in the demand and the resources. And so staffing firms really need to put more resources into recruiting and engaging and building relationships and making it as easy as possible for somebody to work with them. We're also seeing, you mentioned margins continue to be squeezed. Customers are expecting more for less, and they're seeing automation come as well. So more and more customers are expecting suppliers to come to the table with some type of automation, or at a minimum, some type of texting or communication tool that should result in speed to fill, speed to communicate.
Yeah, it's really interesting that engagement of this workforce. Often it's just kind of part of the woodwork, right? That these people just are not seen as talent, they're a commodity. But now, because of the shortages, that candidate experience and the engagement strategies is so important to retaining that, not only finding and getting that talent to show up to work, but to retain them in those jobs. So it's incredible. Like,
Yeah,
but let's
that's
talk
right.
about the persona of light industrial candidates, right? Because really understanding the psychology and the persona of the demographic of these workers also is really important when it comes to that engagement and ability to retain and ability to work with them, right? So talk
That's
to us a
right.
little bit about what is the persona and the psychology of the light industrial candidates?
Well, I think oftentimes these workers are looking for full-time, and they may be taking some of these light industrial or gig work to land a full-time job. Other times they like the flexibility of being able to pick up a shift here, pick up a shift there. But you often find that they are living paycheck to paycheck. They may or may not have reliable transportation. They may not be tech savvy. Oftentimes I'll talk to customers who say, it's great that there's an app available, but my workers don't have a phone. Or the opposite, my worker prefers to work on a computer. My worker doesn't have a computer.
Yeah.
So I think with all of that, flexibility is key. You have to be able to provide a positive experience for those workers to communicate in the way that they want to communicate. And they want you to be available immediately if there's a problem. You know, for a long time, I've helped support placing accountants. And frankly, when you place an accountant, you place them, and 90 days later, you might check in with them and see how everything is going.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're checking in a little bit more often. But oftentimes with light industrial, the shift might change. And you need to let them know that, you know, they can arrive 30 minutes late, or they didn't get their time card in. And because they're living paycheck to paycheck, they can't wait 2 more weeks for that next paycheck. They need it immediately. So you are interacting probably on a more regular basis. This is a big generality, but quite often that relationship building and the availability of the recruiter to talk to the end worker is critical.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that whole idea of the paycheck to paycheck, they may even be working multiple jobs concurrently. And so that flexibility, like, oh, I'm running late, or I can't take that shift because I'm working somewhere else on these days. Like, it's not the same as a traditional, let's call it professional staffing, where you take the 6-month contract, you should work 9 to 5, and you show up 40 hours a week kind of thing, right?
That's right. With the light industrial labor category, um, oftentimes what you're rated on is attendance, as opposed to a deliverable. And so if you're late, once, twice, or 3 times, that could mean not having a job anymore. So being able to communicate what's happening immediately, having reliable transportation, understanding exactly how to arrive at work, how to clock in, that's really critical to the success and longevity of that worker being on assignment.
No, totally understandable, right? And it is. You have to get into the persona and understand people have different lives, and you need to adapt to that and customize processes and availability and procedures, etc., to work with them in order to not only attract but to retain this type of talent. It's amazing. You know, you have jumped to the solutions side of the fence. And a lot of that is, in the technology space. And so, technology and the implementation of technology in this category is really helping solve some of those issues with engagement, retention, the administrative tasks required to be efficient in administering and working with this group of workers. What are some of the trends you're starting to see, areas of focus, etc., in the light industrial space?
Yeah. Well, in general, I think, as I mentioned, some of this technology that's disrupting the business, you've got platforms that are sort of, you can call them the Uberization of work, that is trying to make it as frictionless as possible for workers to gain a shift and for customers to select workers for a shift. And then you've got staffing firms that are trying to become more productive, lower their costs, maybe compete with some of these platforms, but add that platform type of technology to their tech stack. So we see apps being adopted, with, a variety of success, because anytime you add any type of technology to your tech stack, it means you have to look at your processes. It's going to change the way you operate. You don't just turn on the app and keep doing what you did yesterday and have everything magically work better. So we are seeing the trend for more technology, for different types of communication, but we're also seeing some challenges that go along with that, especially for staffing firms that are just perhaps looking at tech for tech. One of the when we're consulting with staffing agencies, we say, make sure that you're buying tech that's going to solve your business problem, not somebody else's. What tech will help you achieve your goals? And for example, with us, we're not just providing technology to improve productivity. That is a plus, but our technology allows companies to bring tech to their on-site programs. So you may be capturing more share of wallet, or even capturing a new business stream by becoming an MSP or an MSP Lite or a primary vendor. So you need to make sure that that tech aligns with some of the goals. If that's not your goal and you just want a way to communicate, there's lots of platforms out there that can help with that as well.
Yeah, like if I was to think about light industrial, it's chaotic, but it's also chaotic because of the speed, right, required. You got to get people into the process quick, through the process quick, and on site quick, right? And then there's administrative burden that comes along with that as well. So, if I think some of the main steps, are you seeing different focuses within various technology players within the steps, which would be kind of that pre-qualification and vetting steps, or scheduling and filling shifts? Or is it more on the back end, the data side of things where you got to make better decisions based on your history to make better decisions in the future, or is it all of it? What have you seen some advances in
Yes
technology?
to all of that.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's an
You know.
easy, I just almost let you off the hook there. So
Yes.
what are some of the advances even in each of the steps, or are there certain areas of focus?
Well, you know, for every order or assignment that comes in, there are probably 40, 50 plus steps that a recruiter has to go through, from sourcing, you mentioned some, from sourcing to potentially posting a job, to screening, to placing. Then there's the post placement, staying in touch, paying, and even that data piece, right? Can you provide data that can help you forecast what's going to happen next? Is there data that will help you forecast whether or not someone will show up? So there's technology across all of those steps. I think ultimately what the panacea is can we do that on one platform, or minimize the number of platforms to minimize the number of steps and the number of places you have to go to get that data. So we're seeing technology come across everywhere. So that's why it's definitely disruptive and very overwhelming. Another tip I give customers is become educated, right? Take the meeting with the tech supplier, do the demo. Even if you don't need it today, you need to understand what's out there before you purchase, so that you can become educated, because there is so much out there. I've seen more and more consultants in the space, right, to help those staffing suppliers make the decision, and sort of weed through some of the technology to help determine what they need, what's a nice to have, what they should stay away from. And frankly, another thing you should consider is, what do you have today? Can you optimize what you have today before you go add to that tech stack? So much of, whether it's your ATS or your CRM, there's probably functions and features you can utilize that won't cost anything if you can just take advantage of all the features that you own today.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense. And quite honestly, there's been a lot of talk about the human touch, and are you losing this human touch? And are we losing the human touch in this whole continuing to implement more technology in between the candidate, the staffing agency, or the job, right? And
Right.
so to try to minimize the touch points, minimize the different layers of technology they have to interact with, is kind of a goal to simplify it and bring those closer together, which really kind of goes back to the idea of speed, right? Get these people through a process quicker, easier, create a great user experience to ensure they're engaged. And the other success factor is getting someone to take on those roles faster.
That's right.
So that the line doesn't have to stop because they don't have two operators, right, to operate something, right?
Yeah. And I like to keep in mind that, technology is important, that balance is important. We want to optimize productivity so that recruiters can spend more time building those relationships. We're in the business of providing work, and work means providing dignity to people and being able to eat in some cases. And so we can't take that human touch out of that. I think that's a big mistake. You can't remove the humanity out of the equation when you are providing such an important service to somebody, providing them with work.
So, we've talked about the process and the efficiency, the persona of light industrial candidates, but what are you seeing as some of the trends in terms of models, like staffing models, resourcing models, etc.? Because it's often more chaotic, you need more focus on it versus a generalist type MSP program or a generalist HR type program. You need more specialization, almost focused on it. What are you seeing as some of the various models when within various programs when it comes to organizations that have a big concentration of light industrial type requirements.
Yeah, we are starting to see more more centralization. We used to say stay away from VMS/MSP programs for a variety of reasons, but I am seeing more companies that are embracing that. Not everybody, but some that are embracing that model, and maybe more post-COVID, because you have workers, your internal staff spread out so far in so many places. You've learned how to centralize and be remote, and that means you can recruit remotely, and that means you can move your resources to recruit from in different cities without having to be there. So I think COVID created opportunity for more companies to fulfill through a VMS or an MSP model. So we are seeing that. I mentioned it earlier, but we are also seeing more of a desire to improve share of wallet by becoming a primary vendor as another go-to-market strategy. And in fact, I just, before this, I just got off a kickoff call with a customer who has launched their MSP model, and that is focusing on mid-market light industrial because that's sort of an underserved market. We've got a lot of mid-sized manufacturing companies out there that are managing 5, 6, 20, 30 vendors, and they're still doing that on a spreadsheet because that VMS technology was really originally built for much larger enterprises. So we're seeing more of an interest in VMS technology for the mid-market and manufacturing, and we're seeing more players coming into that market as well.
Very cool. Well, Kathy, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your day to talk to us about the light industrial staffing marketplace, some of the trends, the insight into the persona of candidates and different models. So thanks again for joining the conversation. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me. I love to talk about this topic. I'd love to continue the conversation with anyone who's interested. Thanks, Ken.
Awesome. Take care.